We're live. It is, I don't know, a little after 7. Yeah, tacos are here. What's up? So we're going to take a look at, if you guys were here earlier, you saw the previous live feed where we did flow testing on the ported head. That one was the G head from the guys at the car farm. So a ported version of the early 2.2 liter Dodge turbo head. Now we have the later version, the Swirl head, and both of them have been ported. So I find out, how do they compare? We know from previous testing when we ran these things, trim, the G head flows more than the swirl head does. And we did back-to-back tests on the same day on the same airflow bench, and the G head is definitely better. I'm gonna actually reflow those stock ones because I want to verify it on the same day and stuff, make sure that everything's like on the up and up. But it looks to be that the stock G head does flow more than the stock swirl head. Now, earlier we have flowed a ported G head. Now we're going to flow test the ported swirl head and find out, hey, I remember reading a lot of stuff because I've done a lot of like, before I do anything like this, I want to go online and find out how much data there is there. So I've gone and done a bunch of research, and I've had people tell me, hey, once you port them, that they flow the same, which would be cool because we want that to happen. The swirl head would show better gains because it started out lower. But let's jump in and find out what the swirl head actually does. I've got it set up on the dyno. I have an outline so that this thing just goes right on, it clamps in place. You can see I have a radial entry here, and I have my fancy dancy flow tube for the exhaust, which is actually for a Ford, but it works pretty good. So we can jump in and start flow testing that. If you guys are taking a look at the thumbnail, it's very cool. That was an earlier mid 60s Tempest that had a blown small block in it, and they did kind of a cool test. They were getting it ready for the Moon Ice thing, which I think is today. And so hopefully they're doing well. So thumbs up to you guys. And they did a test which was something that we would do a lot on the chassis dyno. We run their issues over there tuning it. So you run the carburetors with the blower and then run air cleaners on them. And then you want to see if there's a difference because sometimes it does change the air fuel ratio. In this case, smaller ones can definitely also change the power output, which is exactly what they did. So that was very, very cool. But good luck to those guys. That's a really cool looking car. It's a straight axle. It's got a small block in it. It's a Pontiac. It's got all kinds of coolness. So we'll go ahead and get things started. Right now, I have this set up at about 550 lift. And what we'll do is start out at 550 on the intake side, see what that flows. Then I'll just go down and lift because that's what we do. We start out, when I do it, I start out like at whatever the max lift is. In our case, that's about what it will allow before we run into retainer to seal clearance. So we'll start out at 550, go to 500, and then we'll go down in hundred thousands increment steps. So we'll go to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I'll do another quick hit at like 50. And what I like to do is, since we started out with the dial indicator at 0, when I go back down, I like to re-verify that it is indeed back at 0 so that we didn't have any fluctuation, any movement there. So let's jump right in and flow test, see what this thing flows at 550 lift. Again, ported swirl head from the guys at the car farm. So lift, step there, step there. Okay, guys, what do you think it flowed? This thing, to give you an idea, the stock head, the last time I flowed it, I think was near 140-ish or so. So what did this thing flow once it was ported? What do you guys think? This thing flows? Come on, give me some guesses. So our poll for tonight. Okay, so the poll for tonight, would you daily drive a straight axle hot rod as your daily driver with a blown small block or a blown LS or a blown whatever Pontiac, whatever you want to put in it, but you know, like a 671 blower deal? Would you use that as your daily driver? Let me know on poll. Poll position. So we got some guesses in here. 189, 146, 229. That would be really, really nice. 165, 177, 12. Sean, nice. 201, 163, 186, 193, 170. We're optimistic. They caught it early. 183, nice. 100, 166. So we were looking at 169 CFM at 550 lift. So I'm going to go down to 500. Let me know what you guys think. 50,000's drop. What is it? What's it going to change for the flow? Got my mirror. Yeah, flow for the win. They're running some trophy or take that back. It's a King of the Hammers thing over there because people are getting ready. I think people are actually already there. These guys might be a little bit late. Game of the program. So they're doing King of the Hammers deal over there, and they're getting ready. So what is the flow now? I hate solid front axles. It loses 760. Come on, camera. Keep up. Keep up with the program here. Freaking out. It flows a whopping 167 and only lost 2 CFM, which is good because we want that. We're not going to have any camshaft that's going to be 550 lift. They're all going to be 500 or around there probably for this thing. So we'll go down now to 400 lift. Okay, we dropped down 100,000 down to 400 lift. What are we looking at? Solid front axle Toyota. I prefer independent front suspension. It is better, but it's not as cool. It's not all raised up and jacked up and stuff. So what are we looking at? 148, 149, 166. I didn't do the David Vizard head. I haven't flowed that. I only did the ported car farm G head earlier. Not 480 lift. 400 lift was 154. We'll go down to 300, 300. All right, what are we looking at? 300. 131, that's actually a pretty good guess. About 700 lift. This one won't go to 700 lift. 141. Yeah, it's down quite a bit more than that. David did have some flow numbers on his channel, but this is not that head. Uh, 129 at 300. So we'll go down to 200 now. Got to change my flow range. Pretty good size drop there. What did we drop down to? 115, 89, 98, 81, 104, 123, 96, 106, 75. I want to see a C4 Corvette with a 9-inch rear axle. Nice. We are looking at 87 CFM. 87. We're going to go down again. So where are we at on 100? Guys are throwing out 40 numbers. That's pretty close. 42 for Deuce. Okay, last number was 50,000. So we go from 100 down to 50. I just kind of want to see, like, right off of the seat where this thing wants to be, what the flow rate is at 50 thousandths. At 100 is way low. 100 was 40. 17 at 50, 21, 23, 18, 20, 21. 10. 10 would be low. It is 19, flows 19 CFM. And this is a swirl head. I don't know, just some sort of used swirl head that was sitting around from the guys at the car farm. All they did was just like with the G head that they sent, they did porting on it, and mostly bowl work and stuff. So the ports as well. A little bit of chamber work, not a whole bunch, not nearly as extensive as the Vizard head appears to have, as David did on the. We know that it's not the same because he did a bunch of work on the G head because that's the one that he was sent. But on this head, this was a used head, and what they did was no valve job on it. All they did was lap the used valves, and in fact, I took the valves out and cleaned them. Took them over to the wire wheel and hit the valve. Okay, I'll grab some, man. I got tacos there for me. I took them over to the wire wheel to clean out the back sides of the valves and the stems and stuff, just so they're cleaned up and so they're working. But I don't need these anymore. So let's see how everybody else is doing. We got our poll up. What's our poll doing? Would you guys drive it? Straight axle, 74% saying yes. That's pretty cool. So let's see what you guys got going on. I'm still trying to get I've got an LS that we're trying to run. This is the we, all of this. I'm trying to run the 4 camshafts from the various people, the Truck Norris and the Chopacabra. Get to the chopper. And then the Cam Motion one and the Summit version. And thanks to all the people that sent those out. So we'll be running that tonight. Going to design a double ARM TTB style setup. Use a third member. Cool. Today's Camaros and Mustangs are IRS. Sadly, you missed a 62 T-Bird. Yeah, we know it. We know what chupacabra means, but that's not they call it the chopacabra because it's got chop, or cam's got chop. Like to see a rotary swap sobs on it. That'd be good. One of the guys that early on when I used to go to the Silver State, a guy had a sob sonnet with a 289 swapped in it. It was just way forward of the front center line of the wheels, and we're like, dude, that is like really awesome. But he goes, oh yeah, it's diabolical at speed. We like, yeah, it looks like it might be. Running a truck Norris on an LS2 turbo, that should be a good cam. We know that we know in fact that it is a good turbo cam, as they all are. Going to import face off in the 26. Good. Get your stuff all dialed in, man. Get that drive-by-wire throttle body working. And no straight axles with Michigan potholes. It's probably better in a place that has decent roads. Called Cam Motion for cam recommendations after they suggested I call Frankenstein Engine Dynamics in Texas. Gen 3 Hemi, cool. As long as they've tested a bunch, then it's good stuff. In fact, I'm gonna that's actually with the lighting. There we go. That's a little bit better. What Summit Cam is it? I don't know if they have a name for it. I can get the specs on it. I'll grab the Summit Cam and the Cam Motion one. Out to the Steve at Cam Motion and Brian over at the Summit. So that Cam Motion actually sent two of them. I chose the smaller of the two. It is the little lope hot rod and off-road truck cam, 216, 224, 553, 108 plus 3. And then the Summit Cam Pro LS is 8728R1. So let's see. I don't know any of the specs of these off the top of my head. So that cam is 600, 585. So big lift one, 212, 218, 110 plus 3. So we got all sorts of different. It'll be cool. Total Engine Airflow no longer ports Gen 3 Hemi heads. That's too bad. I have tested their way back. I tested some of their ported heads. They work good. Placing the fuel pump on my 07 extended cab. Just to inquire fuel pump design for 8-foot truck bed. If extended cab or crew cab would be too much for 6.5 bed. Who has heads? Edelbrock has heads for those. AFR now has heads for those. I took a look at the flow numbers when I sat down with the guys from Airflow Research, and shout out to Tim at Airflow Research for corralling me in for the awards thing, because otherwise I was off to go somewhere else. Something shiny caught my eye. But they have Hemi heads, and I saw the flow numbers on them, and they're pretty impressive. What was the difference in stock flow to David Beiser's heads? I don't have his flow numbers. AFR sells pre-ported Hemi heads. They have as cast Hemi heads, and they also have ported Hemi heads. They have 3 stages of heads. And there are quite a few people that sell, ported versions of the heads, and especially the ported versions of the Apache and Eagle heads, because you know, being pretty impressive right off the bat. There would be the equivalent, I'm sure, of like an LS3 head, and they think that they even flow more than an LS3 head does. So go, if you haven't, I'm sure everybody here already has and knows about David Vizard, but if you haven't, if you don't know who he is and you're watching this, maybe you're coming on and you're not on the live feed, please go check out his channel, David Vizard. If you want to know things about porting and how to choose cam shafts and that kind of stuff, he's got a lot of good information there. Shadow, what does nobody know? If I build myself a cool C4 Corvette, it might inspire me to want to get my driver's license back. Baby steps. '86 watching, 44 thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up, yo. No thumbs up. Following David Vizard for the 318 build. Yeah, that should be interesting to see what happens. If you have a guy helping you with something like that, he's a good guy to have. I spoke with him the other day on the Dodge head. Watching the Barrett Jackson auction. I don't have time to watch that. I barely have time to get back online and do a live feed. I'm excited about running those other cams though. Dan, you're losing the transmission. I'm hardwired, so the transmission should be good. The Barrett Jackson stuff definitely is beyond my price range. I'm curious to see. We've got some pretty big variations in these cams. It'll be interesting to see. Which should never be reused during a rebuild. Anything that's broken. Have you done anything with a trick flow small block head? We've tested lots and lots of trick flow small block heads, and they're very, very good. And you can port them. In fact, I was talking to the guys. TrickFlow was one of the people that I met with when I was at the NPMC conference, and I talked to them about the 170 or 175, the Super 23 head that we use on the 305 stuff. And I asked them if that head could be ported. I would like them to offer a ported version of that for a guy trying to make a small bore motor, have it make even more power. We've done stuff that's near 400 horsepower with those, so they can do okay. But life is always a lot easier with any motor if you have lots and lots of head flow. And so that head, that 175 head, is about like what we have seen out of the small block forward heads that would be similar to the twisted wedge head. It's you know, a 240, 250 CFM head, which is enough to support pretty good power. But if it were a 270 or 280 or 290 CFM head in ported form, and with still reasonable port volume, and honestly, I don't think that that's going to make a big difference. But we would have it'd be much easier to make power. You know, we could do it with a smaller cam. I really like my old TFS one. Like Chevy heads. I didn't know that they were made a cannon valve one. I twisted wedge stuff. I have reused rod bearings on my test engines. I reuse rod bearings all the time, and main bearings and rings and all of that. The thing that I don't normally reuse is I don't, and we have, but not very often. The factory head bolts, especially if I'm going boost, I usually put good head bolts in, and I don't ever remember reusing factory head gaskets. I've taken the factory heads off, and when you take those off of a really high mileage motor for they're the original gaskets, unless you're taking the head off and just putting the head right back on. So all of the stuff that's separated from the gasket, because it is going to separate from the gasket, I might put it on and run it like that, but I wouldn't do that for boost. I take that head gasket off and I clean off the on the big bang stuff. We resurface the head and resurface the block, so we had a good starting point, and then we had the right surface finish, so we could put the. We normally use a Fel Pro or a factory MLS head gasket on it. We're trying to run a lot of boost, but I like a good sealing surface, so I don't normally reuse those. The small Mopar is 190, CNC flows 300. That would be a lot. I reuse the torque yield head bolts on my 5-liter small block Ford. We've done that a lot. I've done that on Hondas. We've done that on everything. I've used reused the factory head bolts, and I normally do that on NA stuff. I used an MLS head gasket 4 times. Yeah, I don't a real high mileage one because it will tear pieces off they'll be missing stuff. So, but once we put a new one on there, I do head swaps. We've tested, 5, 10, 15 sets of heads on one motor, and they'll all get the same head gasket because we bolt it on there and run it for 6 pulls and take it back off and then put another set on. The head gasket's perfect. Onboard air good to rub boost control for vacuum brake pressure. I don't know what that is. Have you worked with a Ford Coyote engine? Yeah, I have Coyote videos up on the channel. I way back when they first came out, I did a bunch of stuff with them. We ran, in fact, no, I didn't put that in my book. I don't think. No, that was way after the modular Ford stuff. But yeah, I ran. Ford had sent me a crate motor, and I did a ton of testing with it. That was probably all for Muscle Mustangs and Fast Fords and Hot Rod and those guys. But we ran the Coyote. I ran the stock exhaust manifolds. We ran it with a stock ECU and controls pack and a drive-by-wire throttle body, which we had to rig up in the dyno. We ran all of that stuff, and then Chris from Kenny Bell came over to help us tune it because we had to tune the factory computer, and I don't ever do that, so he was there helping us do that. We ran long tube headers on it. We ran ported heads on it. I ran various camshafts in it. Ran a bunch of different intake manifolds on it. We ran a Kenny Bell blower on it with a bunch of different pulley sizes and air inlet sizes and things. We ran a turbo on it. We ran nitrous on it. So we ran a bunch of stuff with a Coyote. So I'm pretty familiar with this. I use compressed air to add dome pressure for a 4-bore. Yeah, that's pretty normal. Oh, sorry, I had the 195 twisted wedge heads. They were good, but limited on valve lift. Yeah, if you want to, unless you're trying to run a ton. Have you ever thought of converting an old Detroit 671, 6B71? I don't know if I've seen one of those except in pictures. We've run a lot of 671s and 871s and those things, but I don't know about that one. I was always told to toss all the parts when rebuilding. You're just making a new motor. I don't do that. And after doing this stuff for the last, I don't know, 20 years or whatever, however long I've been doing, and what we've been able to do with it, they'd just be wasting their money. What do you think of Whipple Super Well? Like I've run them a lot. I have lots of videos up on Whipple stuff. To run extreme valve lift on a Gen 3 Hemi, can you elevate the rocker shaft or what? I don't know. I don't think I've ever run stuff that's more than near that 600 lift range. What's coming up on the channel? Right now, the things I'm doing right now, hopefully for this trip, the cam swap on the LS, possibly some cam swaps on the Ford, and I'd like to get the 2.2 Dodge running as well. A buddy that races ITC Honda will flip the rod bearings and run the other half of the season with them. Okay. You mean you just flips them over? Trying to look and see what Sykes was talking about. How's our poll doing? 70% saying yes, that they would daily drive a straight axle. That'd be a lot. Gen 353, best way to make 500 NA. I have videos up on that talk to you about how to make 500 flywheel horsepower. It takes everything on a 5.3. It takes ported heads, cam, and intake manifold to get that much power. Bumpy ride on a straight, actually, it would be. And if the road's not good, that's, as a couple of guys have mentioned, if the road's not good, it's just not fantastic. Yeah, I don't think wear on one side. If I built a 543 valve, could I keep the VVT or would I have to lock the cam phasers? It depends on how much camshaft you put in. If you go up sizably on the camshaft, you will not be able to swing it unless you put piston to valve, unless you improve the piston to valve clearance situation by putting valve reliefs in the pistons. And then you might be able to get away with it. The bearing and the rod cap does not wear as fast as the top half. I prefer an arm style suspension for hot rod, like a double A arm, like a Corvette. Corvette stuff is nice. On your 4.8, what pistons are you running? On my 4.8, they're the pistons that came in the motor from the wrecking yard. They're stock ones. That's where all the race pistons come from. They come from the wrecking yard. So they're just a flat top with no valve reliefs. Have you seen all the bearing issues on the new 6.2s have? I didn't know about that. I didn't know that was a thing. How much piston valve clearance is recommended? You can actually get away with not very much, because the problem is, or the benefit is when the thing's running dynamically, you have a whole bunch of deflection that adds to piston to valve clearance. But I've run stuff as tight as like 10 or 20, but I don't recommend it. Engine displacement doesn't matter? No, it doesn't. What would be the average horsepower loss to the wheels for a 500 LS with a 4L80? You have to look into a lot more than just the transmission. The converter that you have, if you have a converter, or you would have a converter on a 4L80, what converter you have, what the drive shaft weight is, what the rear end is, what the wheel and tire package is, plays a big difference. What configuration did you run it on the engine dyno versus, and irrespective of the drivetrain, what configuration did you run on the engine dyno versus what configuration did you run on in the vehicle? Did you run it with a full exhaust? Did you run it with headers? You know, all of that stuff. It's a lot of stuff. 100 horsepower is probably a maybe some sort of reasonable estimate. The 6.2s, are you're talking about the LT1s and the L86s, the Gen 5 stuff that come locked up at 4,000 miles? Of a 572, 345, AFR heads, flow 400, that's good. 14 to 1, 266, 274 cam, 106 LSA, Merlin intake, and a 1050 Dominator. That should be a good combination. If it's a drag race combination, I think I would want more camshaft than that. Watch a lot of the videos, first live feed, your small Chevy cam swap video with the 268. Lost bottom end, the result be similar in a Pontiac 301. Yeah, probably more so on that smaller motor. Danny, I don't think that that's enough camshaft to make 900. It seems like the camshaft is a little small. $572 though. Only damaged one bearing on 3 engines. I have destroyed. Bought new sets and kept the good old set. We reused all of the Bonneville record motors that I did out at Bonneville. All the Civic stuff, all of the Kazashi stuff, the Volkswagen stuff. All of those were used bearings. Can you convert a single overhead cam engine to a double overhead cam? Yeah. On the modular Fords, you can. Do the parasitic losses to a centrifugal? I assume you're talking about a supercharger with engine speed and boost. They do. They would go up with flow rate. Basically, you're asking the supercharger to do more work, and so the loss associated with that, just like any supercharger, will go up with RPM and flow. And so not just boost, but boost also. Pertronix digital versus a magneto. I don't know. I don't think that there would be drive loss. Maybe one of those would have more drag than the other. But again, like we talked about, oil packs and coils and that kind of stuff, if you don't have misfire, it's going to be really hard to get any kind of power gain. I am also going to be testing some. Troy, do you know what that? Oh, you weren't at MPMC, but there's some. It's some kind of secret sauce or something that the guy you haven't seen that. I just remember it being green. I don't know what it was. I don't know. I have the guy's card up, but I'm supposed to test it though, and we'll see what happens. Richard, why not put a butterfly in front of a centrifugal blower in addition to a later throttle body? Why do you want 2 of them there? Do you want to restrict the inlet into the blower like later on at the top? L8762, they just lock up with no warning. Okay. Danny, cam like a 280, 290 at 50. Yeah, that would be more like, I think when the 565 that I did, and I think I also did a 555, and I don't know if I've done a 572. I think that there are only 555s and 565s. I think it was a 282, 286 or a 286, 290 something. It was a pretty good size cam. because you've got enough head and you've probably got enough intake. And we ended up running a tunnel ram on it. And there's not a tunnel ram cam. there's just more cam and less cam. An MSD atomic. Do you think it'll be 585-ish? Done right. It could be up in that number. Yes, wasted energy pumping boost that you don't use it. Oh, you want to throttle it while you're driving? Most of them have a bypass valve anyways. But limiting the flow going into it may make it easier also. I thought you were trying to do something at wide open throttle. Richard, thank you for these. When you're done, when you did the junkyard buildups, did you add a cam and aluminum heads with a stock dish piston? We did. And some of them were 202 valves, but when we did the big bang stuff, I actually notched the pistons. Compound turbo may not have as much power loss as a regular turbo. How are you determining power loss on the turbo? I don't understand. Centrifugal blower is wasting energy pumping boost when the throttle is not all the way open. It certainly would be if you don't have a bypass valve on it. And you are using power to drive the blower. Richard, would a circle track cam work on the street? Yeah, but it's a straight street cam. Because most of the circle track cams are really, really tight stuff, and the idle quality is not going to be good. Looking at an 03 to 07 Yukon, anything I should look out for? Does anybody know? I would. The only part about that thing that I would know is that it's just the motor. Would a 302 from an 85 with a TBI have provisions for a manual fuel pump? Need a motor to put in place of my wife's 67. Does anybody know do the late model one-piece deals? I don't even know if that is. Is an 85 a one-piece? We normally have a bypass valve on the stuff driving on the street, and then it has to recirculate if you have a mass air meter. Otherwise, it can just blow to atmosphere. But it makes a big difference, and it also makes a big difference with discharge temperature when you go to get back on the throttle. It was a big difference on the when I first did that test on the Kenny Bell. You're cruising down the road at 2,000 or 3,000 RPM when you're on the freeway. And you didn't have a bypass valve on it, the air heats up a lot. Let's see. I'm going to be testing some interesting fuel additives, oil additives rather, and some oil that, I don't know, they're promising big things. So we'll see what happens. I've done some oil tests, so we'll have to see what happens. But the other thing that's interesting is I was talking to the guys at Iski who have some very, very good lifters. They're more money, but if all of the machining that they're talking about with those is accurate, it should solve the problems that are out there. Yeah, they're doing I think it's a Ford powered, it's actually a King of the Hammers deal. I was thinking it was an off-road, like a trophy truck, because they run a lot of those here, but this is a Hammers one. It's hammer time. Michael, you need to stop posting the same thing. Because if that appears one more time, then you're gone. That doesn't fly. That does not fly. Yes, 74%. Would you drive a straight axle hot rod? Tyler, you're gonna test a compound turbo against a non-compound turbo. The question I always have, because I get people that are compound turbo and they want to insist that it's a lot more efficient than a single turbo or whatever, but they never want to test it at the same boost level. I'm like, okay, look, here's the way the public views this. If you're going to put a turbo on a motor, you have it NA, and then you run it with a turbo, and you run it at some boost level. Let's say you run it at 10 pounds. Okay, you're going to compound turbo it now. Okay, good. But they want a compound turbo at 20 pounds. Look, it's much better. Yeah, every turbo at 20 pounds is better than it is at 10 pounds. That's not the same thing. If somebody shows me that the compound turbo at 10 pounds is better than just having a turbo at 10 pounds, it honestly wouldn't surprise me, especially it should be more responsive. But more boost does not mean more efficient. Let's see here. An 04 Flex Fuel Yukon. Head casting's buried on my 5.3. Some are supposed to be cleaner. I have a gauge issue, and it took me minutes to realize mine's 40-60% full. Okay. Brandon, you got the oil pump in timed and the oil pan bolted on the 2.2. I know I need to get the pan on this one. Received my 540 power adder. Got a 1071. Nice. With an intercooler. Nice. I talked to the guys at Blueprint when I was at MPMC. Compound turbo setup can do things at high altitudes a single stage compressor can. Again, this isn't an aviation exercise. This is a guy driving around on the street at some sort of reasonable altitude, and he runs 10 pounds on it. The question is, will the compound do something different at 10 pounds that one won't do? And now I know why ProCharger kits made 13 PSI in 5 years. Yeah, if it's a restriction, it's easy to make boost. Eagle rods, JE pistons. Hopefully the rods don't come out on the aftermarket stuff. I don't know why they would. I don't think I've ever had any sort of spiral lock or even a spring lock, any of those come out. No, I don't think I've ever had that problem. Brandon, whose rods did you use? Oh, Eagle rods? Are they a factory length rod? I think that the guys that are, I mean, where I think it belongs and where it's used most often is in diesel applications. That works out really well. How much power can a Gen 3 5.3 take? I don't know. We've run 1,300 with them, and we've run 1,400. We've run 1,400 on the Gen 3 6 liter. I'm sure that the 5.3 will take that. Is there a way to help keep the alcohol out of the oil? No, just change the oil. You might be able to get the oil temperature hot enough where you can cook it out, but got half my training upgrade. Good. See, you're double dipping there, multitasking. Richard, did you have 4-valve or 6 camshaft like the cams you tested? I've only tested. I think I've only run one set on a 4-valve. Those are the 262 cams. Factory length, the stock T2 engine, the wrist pin locks came out on the cylinder. Are the factory locks, are the receivers or the grooves like not thick enough or something? Was there ever a carbureted variable length intake? I don't know. I'd have to go back and look through historical records. It would certainly be possible, but I don't know that one of the factories ever did that. You dynoed a 4-cylinder Fontana or Arius? I have not. Are Wilson manifolds worth the money? I don't know. It depends on how much money you make, I guess. I mean, Keith Wilson knows an awful lot about making stuff work. Everyone that we've tried, like the tunnel ram and stuff, and I had one of his for my Engine Masters deal. Everyone that I've tried worked well. Now it's running over there. Now it's running good. Now they're making some steam. So I'm going to go ahead and close out our poll. 72% are saying yes. We're going to end our poll there. Getting ready at the trailer park. Yeah. They're not afraid to make some noise over there. Is anyone else having issues in and out with the signal? I don't know. Maybe are they generating RF over there? Tim, I actually just threw out some pizza, and best of all, it was truck stop pizza, which is, as we know, has to be the best kind of pizza there is. I've run 2 compound systems, one on the at least turbo and turbo action compound stuff on the LS, and then one on the Chevy Sprint turbo too, which was marginally successful, only limited by the both of the turbo choices I had laying around, and then in the Sprint case, it was a function of not being able to control the air fuel and the timing properly because it was a flapper door vane meter. And on the LS, I thought it worked pretty well given the choices that I made for the turbos, the ones that were sitting around. Turbo sensor, it shouldn't be going bad after 500 miles. Was it the XC268? Yes, it was. Those were the cams that I put in we put them in a couple of motors. I put them in the 03 Cobra motor, And then I also used those cams in the early 96 to 98 Cobra NA deal that we did. I was thinking of a supercharge into a turbo. We did that. I did that twice too. We ran the turbo blowing into the blower, which would be the right way to do it. The supercharger can help. It makes the naturally aspirated motor more powerful, which then helps spool the turbos up. Then the idea is then to, if you can, to go around the supercharger, and ideally if you could decouple it, even better. But that's that's a lot going on. Turbo Century, that's got to get expensive changing your oil every 500 to 1,000 miles. Man, that's one Westech trip for me. Yeah, right, Ricky. He sees it. He's on it. We got 2 more minutes. Dos minutos más. I daily drove a big block C10. My neighbors weren't a fan. Yeah. Does the listed RPM range actual, or does it vary? Well, what you should look at is you should look at the videos that I have up on testing those cams, and that will tell you exactly what it is. Do not go by the list that they give in the catalog or whatever. Is not going to tell you what the cam does. Is there a direct gear drive for the LS for a timing set? I don't know if I've seen a gear drive for those or not. I've seen before. Gear drives are loud. Yeah, we need to get 8 more likes, more thumbs up. Thumbs up, what's up? And on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up. I really got to jump back on this LS, but I will be back tomorrow early, and then I will also be back tomorrow at 7. Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Late. Bow, 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 bow.